Once a new analysis model has been created, we can finally proceed to build a pivot statistic. Click on the Analysis List button to open the list in which it appears, and then click on the Display button. In this way, you can access the modeling mask of the pivot analysis. This mask is mainly divided into two regions: the central region where the pivot will be displayed, and the right side region, in which you find a panel with the controls needed to configure the structure of the pivot table. The configuration panel is divided into various parts. At the top, the controls for saving, loading and deleting the display layouts. A display layout just corresponds to a saved pivot table and, as we will see later, one or more charts. Right below, in the central part of the configuration panel, there are 4 square boxes, designed to contain data fields. Depending on where you choose to place a field, it can then appear at the left side, at the top, or in the body of the table. The order in which the fields appear also matters, because it decides the grouping hierarchy. Finally, in the lower part of this panel, we find 2 checkboxes on which to act, to choose which general totals to show. To test the potential of the system, let's assume we want to create an analysis on the turnover of the representatives of the sales network of the last 2 years, compared on the first 6 months of each year. Let's start by moving the 2 fields, year and month, one by one, from the Available Fields box to the Column Dimensions box. Note that the upper portion of the pivot table starts to appear. Note also that only 2 months of the year 2020 appear, but they are of no interest for the purposes of the statistics we want to achieve. To exclude the entire year 2020, open the context menu of the year field, and then remove the check on this unwanted value. Once confirmed, the previous 2 years are fully represented in the pivot table. Now, just because we are interested in the first 6 months only, let's open the context menu of the month field, and make sure to select only the months that interest us. Once this is done, let's move on to inserting the lateral dimensions of analysis. Let's look for the region and representative fields from the available fields, and place them to the row dimensions box. The system will list the geographical areas, exploding a detail by representative. At this point, only the turnover data to be summarized in the body of the pivot table is missing, so we add it by moving the net amount field from the Available Fields box to the Summary Fields box. Let's insert column totals at the bottom of the table too, by clicking on the appropriate checkbox. Let's also add subtotals by year, by selecting the appropriate checkbox, located within the context menu of the year field. The pivot table that we plan to create as an example, is now supposed to be completed. To understand how each single cell value is calculated, you can obtain its detail. Just move above the cell of interest, and then click to show a pop-up detail in which all the data involved will appear. This detail can be exported in Excel format. The pivot table can be exported in Excel format too, by using the appropriate export command. Finally, we decide to save the table in a dedicated display layout, by clicking on the Save button and setting a name. In this way, afterwards it will be possible to retrieve the pivot table, and, as we will see later, include it in a dashboard.